The story begins with a man named Michael Atwood, who is planning a daring bank robbery with his team of criminals. His crew includes Russell Welch, a skilled and loyal partner, and Gabe, Michael's brother, who used to be a police officer but was fired under mysterious circumstances. It was revealed that they are hired by a powerful mafia boss to steal a specific safe deposit box from a bank. This box contains crucial evidence that could free a Russian crime lord from prison. The crime lord was recently convicted for a series of serious crimes, but the information in the box could prove his innocence, or at least get him out of jail. Knowing the job will be extremely dangerous, Michael decides to bring in two more members to help: Marcus Belmont and Franco Rodriguez, both corrupt cops. Michael promises his team a huge reward if they succeed. Meanwhile, the person who hired them is Irina Vlaslov, the wife of the imprisoned crime lord. She is cold, calculating, and ruthless, and she won't hesitate to kill anyone who betrays her. As Michael and his crew prepare for the robbery, the story shifts to a police detective named Chris Allen. Chris is a dedicated officer who loves his family deeply. Before heading to work, he kisses his wife, Michelle, and their young son goodbye, unaware of the chaos that's about to unfold. Back to Michael and his team, they gear up for the heist. They put on masks, arm themselves with weapons, and head to the bank. While Michael and most of the crew enter the bank to take down the security guards, Russell stays outside in the getaway car, keeping watch for any police who might show up. Inside, Michael forces a bank manager to open the safe deposit box they've been sent to steal. They grab the box and its contents, but Gabe secretly takes a bundle of cash, even though stealing money wasn't part of the plan. Once they have what they came for, they rush out of the bank, setting off a grenade at the entrance to create chaos and cover their escape. As they drive away, red smoke suddenly starts pouring out of the bag where Gabe stashed the stolen money. The smoke fills the car, making it hard to see and causing the driver to lose control. As a result, they're forced to stop in the middle of heavy traffic. Desperate to escape, Michael and his crew start shooting in all directions, causing panic. They abandon their car, steal another one, and blow up their original vehicle to destroy any evidence. After finally finding a safe spot to hide, the team starts arguing. Franco and Marcus blame Gabe for taking the money, which led to the red smoke and nearly ruined their mission. Tensions rise and weapons are drawn, but Michael steps in to calm everyone down. He warns them not to turn on each other. Once the fight is over, they set the stolen car on fire to erase any traces of their escape and leave the area using a different route. Russell, who is a former Navy SEAL like Michael, takes Gabe aside and scolds him for his reckless decision to take the money. Russell reminds Gabe that their mission was already risky enough without adding unnecessary complications. Gabe, who was once a good cop before being fired, seems to regret his actions but doesn't say much. As the team regroups, they know they're not out of danger yet. The police, led by Detective Chris Allen, are closing in, and Irina is watching their every move. One wrong step could mean disaster for all of them. The scene then shifts to a police sergeant named Jeffrey Allen, who is put in charge of investigating the bank robbery carried out by Michael and his crew. The safe deposit box they stole belongs to a Russian billionaire named Dmitry, but Jeffrey has no idea who the robbers are or why they targeted the box. Shortly after, Jeffrey's nephew, Chris Allen, arrives at the police station after hearing about the robbery. Eyewitnesses reported that the suspect spoke Spanish during the heist. This detail catches Chris's attention, though he doesn't yet realize that two of the suspects, Marcus Belmont and Franco Rodriguez, are corrupt cops who happen to be fluent in Spanish. Marcus and Franco are at the station too, acting calm and confident, sure that no one will suspect them of being involved. Chris, who is new to the police force, is assigned to be Marcus's partner. However, Marcus clearly doesn't like Chris and often ignores him, making their partnership tense and uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Michael takes the stolen safe deposit box to Irina Vlaslov, the wife of the Mafia boss who hired him. During their meeting, Irina brings Michael's young son to see him. The boy is actually Irina's nephew because his mother, Elena Vlaslov, is Irina's younger sister. Michael has been working for Irina and her husband under threat. She has warned him that if he doesn't cooperate, she will take away his son and keep Elena from him. Now that Michael has completed the robbery, he demands that Irina keep her promise to let him leave with Elena and their son, as well as pay him for the job. But Irina refuses. She tells Michael that he and his crew have one more mission to complete before she'll let him reunite with his family or receive any payment. This time, they must break into the Department of Homeland Security office and steal more data related to her husband's case. The information in the safe deposit box won't be enough to free her husband unless they also get the data stored in the DHS database. Reluctantly, Michael agrees. As he's about to leave, he runs into Elena, who has just finished a meeting with FBI agents loyal to Irina's husband. Their encounter is awkward, and Elena hands Irina a satellite phone, explaining that her husband is calling. With no other choice, Michael calls his crew together to discuss the new mission. However, things take a dark turn when Russell, one of Michael's most trusted crew members, is captured and brutally tortured by Irina's henchmen. Irina does this to send a message to Michael and the others. She's in control, and they must obey her or face the consequences. Not long after, Michael and the rest of the crew gather at a safe location, waiting for Russell to arrive. Suddenly, they see Russell's car approaching, but it's moving erratically. Sensing something is wrong, Michael rushes to the car and finds Russell severely injured. Russell's condition is so bad that Michael is forced to end his suffering, a decision that deeply traumatizes Gabe. Now down a key member, Michael and his crew regroup to plan their next move. Marcus and Franco suggest a risky strategy called a 999 scenario. This involves creating a fake emergency, an officer down call that will draw all nearby police officers to a specific location, leaving the DHS office less guarded. To make the plan work, Marcus proposes that they target Chris Allen, his new partner and a Marine veteran, as the officer to be killed in the fake emergency. The crew reluctantly agrees, knowing the stakes are higher than ever. The next day, Chris and Marcus are assigned to investigate a murder case that seems to be connected to local gang activity. To gather information, Chris approaches a group of gangsters hanging around the crime scene. He tries to question them about the murder, but the gangsters don't like his attitude and refuse to cooperate. They even insult him, and the situation nearly turns into a fight. Just as things are about to get out of hand, Marcus steps in and pulls Chris away. Marcus warns Chris that the gangsters in this area are dangerous and wouldn't hesitate to harm even a police officer. Later that evening, Chris meets his uncle, Sergeant Jeffrey Allen, at a bar. Jeffrey updates Chris on the bank robbery case, revealing that it might be much bigger and more complicated than they initially thought. Over the next few days, Marcus tries to build a better relationship with Chris as they work together. During one of their patrols, Chris manages to get a local gang member to talk. The gangster gives Chris a tip about who might be behind the murder they're investigating. Acting on this information, Chris, Marcus, and a team of officers raid the house of suspect believed to be the murderer. However, the suspect is a member of a gang led by a dangerous man named Luis Pinto. A violent shootout breaks out between the police and the gangsters. During the chaos, Chris is shot and the suspect escapes. But Marcus catches up to the man, and the two get into a brutal fight. Just as the suspect seems to be gaining the upper hand, Chris arrives and shoots him, ending the confrontation. Meanwhile, Jeffrey continues his investigation into the bank robbery. He receives a tip from a trusted informant and learns that Gabe, Michael's brother, is involved in the heist. On the other side of town, Michael talks to Irina, demanding to speak with Elena and their son. Over the phone, Elena tells Michael that she and their son are in Tel Aviv, Israel, and that Michael won't have enough time to reach them before the next mission. Gabe, still grieving the death of his brother Russell, tries to stop Michael and the crew from carrying out the next robbery. He starts following Chris and Marcus, hoping to warn Chris about the plan. But Marcus catches Gabe and violently kicks him away, not wanting Chris or anyone else to find out about his involvement with the crew. When Chris asks Marcus about Gabe, Marcus lies, saying Gabe is just a former informant. Later, Gabe tries to visit Chris at his house to explain everything, but Detective Trina Ling, Jeffrey's partner, tracks Gabe's movements and alerts Jeffrey. Jeffrey rushes to Chris's house to check on him, but by the time he arrives, Gabe has already fled, realizing the police are onto him. On the day of the planned robbery at the DHS office, Marcus takes Chris to an abandoned housing project, claiming they're meeting an informant with crucial information about their murder case. This is all part of the 999 plan, a scheme to create a fake officer down emergency that will distract the police while Franco breaks into the DHS office to steal the data Irina needs. As Chris and Marcus walk through the dark, empty halls of the building, Marcus sneaks away, leaving Chris alone. Suddenly, Luis Pinto, the gang leader, appears looking for Chris. It turns out Marcus hired Luis to kill Chris as part of the plan. Just as Luis is about to attack, Chris accidentally runs into Gabe, who has been hiding in the building. Gabe urgently warns Chris that he's in danger and that this place is a death trap. The tension rises as Chris realizes he's been set up, and Gabe tries to help him survive the deadly situation. Not long after Gabe warns Chris, Luis suddenly attacks. He tries to shoot Chris, but ends up hitting Gabe instead. As Luis escapes, Chris rushes to Gabe, who is now badly injured. Gabe tries to tell Chris something important, but before he can, Marcus arrives. A tense shootout breaks out between Marcus and Gabe. In the end, Gabe is killed, and Marcus is shot in the head. Worried that Marcus might die, Chris immediately calls in a 999 emergency, a code for an officer in danger. Unbeknownst to Chris, this code is also the signal for Michael and Franco to start their mission. Meanwhile, Jeffrey, thinking Chris is the injured officer, rushes to the scene. At the same time, Michael and Franco break into the Department of Homeland Security office. Despite some resistance from the police, they manage to steal the information Irina demanded. After the heist, Michael meets Irina and her henchmen to exchange the stolen data for his payment. Michael has brought gifts for his son, hoping to finally reunite with him. Irina gives Michael the money as agreed, but refuses to let him take his son, breaking her promise. Enraged, Michael is beaten by Irina's henchmen. As he walks back to his car, he triggers a bomb hidden inside the gifts he brought. The explosion kills Irina and her henchmen instantly. Michael then tries to find Franco to split the money, but Franco betrays him. He kills Michael and takes all the cash for himself. Back at the hospital, Marcus is in a coma after being shot in the head. At the same time, Chris learns that Luis, the gang leader, was shot and killed by a SWAT team. While searching through Luis's belongings, Chris finds a note in his wallet. The note reveals the location where Marcus had taken Chris on the day of the shooting. Chris pieces together that Marcus had met with Luis that day and instructed him to kill Chris. Later, Chris visits the hospital to confront the unconscious Marcus, hoping for answers. But before he can dig deeper, Franco shows up. At that moment, Franco tries to convince Chris to return to the police station to explain the shooting incident. As they head to their cars, Chris receives a call from Jeffrey, who warns him that Franco was involved in the bank robbery and the shooting involving Marcus and Luis. Just as Chris processes this information, he sees Jeffrey hiding in the back seat of Franco's car. A violent shootout erupts between Jeffrey and Franco. At one moment, Franco is killed while Jeffrey is shot in the stomach. In response, Chris calls in another 999 emergency, desperately trying to save his uncle. As he waits for help, Chris pulls out a cigarette and smokes it, his hands trembling with fear and exhaustion. The story ends on a tense note, leaving Jeffrey's fate uncertain. So the moral of the story is, if you're planning to rob a bank, don't let your brother swipe some extra cash, because apparently money smokes now, and your getaway car will turn into a spicy sauna. Also, never trust a mafia boss who brings your kid to meetings. That's just emotional manipulation with a side of explosions.